for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Case Van Hasteren, better known as Mr. V amongst the Archmere community. I am an assistant director of college counseling and also the girls JV basketball coach. And I am going to kind of pass it around the room a little bit, give us some introductions and some backgrounds. But I got to start with my partner in crime, Logan Duffy.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm sure we've crossed paths at some point through the admission office, but I'm Logan Duffy. I work with the college counseling staff as well. Prior to being at Archmere, spent 12 years in higher ed, with about 7 of those years working as an athletic liaison to our Division III athletic programs. So 8 years of those, about 8 years at Ursinus College, and then about 4 years at Widener University. So I've got a lot of crossover between all of our panelists here, most of our panelists here. But work with a handful of our student athletes now through my caseload, and then I coach our girls lacrosse team too. So we'll get into it. We'll start with Kieran, youngest guy on the panel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kieran Udovich. I went to Archmere. I graduated from last year. I was a 3-sport athlete there. I'm a true-born Alk. My whole family went to Archmere, except for my mother. I'm one of 6, and now I'm at Ursinus College. I'm playing football, and my major is biology and health, exercise, and physiology.
And jump over to Donovan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Name is Donovan Anglin. I'm the head men's and women's volleyball coach at Widener. Also the academic coordinator for student athletes in the athletic department. I'm an alum of Widener as well, so I've known Logan for a while. My background, I was a track, soccer, and football guy. Got into volleyball my junior year of college. Got hooked and pretty much never looked back. I've been coaching here now between being the head coach and assistant about 24 years on the women's side. On the men's side, about finishing up my 6th year this end of this year. So yeah.
Jump over to Caroline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Donovan. I am also an Archmere alum. I graduated in 2019. I played both field hockey and lacrosse for Archmere. My sister also attended Archmere. She graduated in 2017. She's a little older than I am. After Archmere, I attended the College of William and Mary. I was recruited to play lacrosse there, so I was on our women's lacrosse team. I was a defender in college, 2-year captain, and now I'm using my 5th year of eligibility as a graduate assistant coach, so on the coaching side of things this year. And I was an anthropology and archaeology undergraduate major, and I'm currently getting my master's in historical archaeology.
And last but certainly not least, Julie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie DuPont. I am a senior assistant director of admission at the University of Richmond, and I'm also our athletics liaison. So I've been here in this role for about 7 years now. And basically, as an athletics liaison, I work very closely with my counterpart in athletics compliance. And so the coaches kind of filter through her and she comes to me, and kind of vice versa with my office. People go through me to her. So we kind of work very closely and talk very often about various students and what's going on with their processes to kind of facilitate the athletics and admission processes together.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys all so much for being here. And thank you to our attendees, all of our students and their families for being here. I forgot to mention this at the very top, so I will let you know that we are recording this panel. So if you hear a good nugget of information and want to come back to it later, we'll be sending out the recording probably within a couple of days. And in addition, we've got a whole bunch of questions planned and scheduled, but this is for you guys, our attendees. So if you come up with any questions that you would like to have, answered. Logan, Mr. Duffy, is going to be monitoring the Q&A section and the chat section. Please feel free to throw some questions in there if you've got something that you think would be particularly helpful. But let's go ahead and start here with a question. We'll start with Kieran and then head over to Caroline. What was your recruitment process like coming out of Archmere? What was the timeline? How did your process go? And how did you end up at Ursinus for Kieran and William and Mary for Caroline? Kieran?
All right. Yeah, it's a very interesting process. Obviously, I mean, everybody has their own story. Mine probably started about my freshman, sophomore year, but so I'm obviously playing football here. So most of my recruiting happens in the summer, but I haven't been healthy in the summer since I believe it was my 7th grade summer. I've been hurt ever since then in the summers ever since. So I haven't been to any camps ever. But when the start camps, sophomore year, 100%, without a doubt. And like I put out some film my sophomore year. I was healthy my sophomore year. My freshman year, I was hurt. Junior year, I played 6 games, was able to get some film out, which was good, but then I was hurt. And then I missed that summer. And then my senior year, I got some more film. So I was able to send it out. So a lot of my recruitment process was a lot later. I wish I was able to get up on like the front end of it, be able to start like my sophomore year, but you got to play the cards you're dealt. And so I was D3 and I came here. I mean, I was trying to go D1. Obviously, I feel like most people are trying to go D1. It was my passion, was what I wanted to do. And then I thought D3 was like an all-star league, pretty much. That's kind of what I came here because I thought it was. And then I come here, and these are grown men. Like it is pretty much D1 ball, like as close as I have seen to it. And it's a great choice. I love it. It was a great experience. Obviously, you're going to have your nicks and stuff like that. But no, I'm settled in. I have a great group of friends. Archmere prepared me like crazy. But yeah, no, it's definitely a journey. But I would definitely, my only advice would be to get up on the front end of it, talk to coaches, get your film out, um, and all that good stuff. And when coaches reach out to me, I would say probably my junior year when they started to reach out to me. And then the D3 coaches started to come in later because they always get you at like the end, like your senior year, end of your junior year. But yeah.
And when did you decide I'm going to Ursinus?
I was late. It was actually kind of funny. I believe it was uh Case Case and Mr. Bohm. I'm not gonna say his first name, but they told me to go to Ursinus pretty early on. They were like, I think you would love it there. And I was like, no, you guys are crazy, whatever. And then I believe like around this time, early April, I decided to go. It was late. It was definitely late, but there's really no pressure. I mean, I know there's definitely like, you have to get it in, but take your time, make sure it's right for you because you don't want to have to go through the whole transfer process. But that's fine too if you do go through it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Kieran. Jump over to Caroline with that same question. What was your recruitment process like?
Sure. So I want to preface this by saying my recruitment process looked a little bit different because the recruitment rules changed during my recruitment process. So the rule used to be that coaches could reach out to players as early as 8th grade, freshman year of high school. So for my freshman and sophomore years, I was able to communicate with coaches early on. So that led to a little bit of a different experience. Um, I did have an offer to go to Army to play lacrosse during my freshman year, and I chose not to take it. That I think for me and my family felt way too premature, way too early to make a decision. And so I continued on through the recruitment process. And then during my sophomore year, the rule was changed and coaches had to halt all communication with athletes, and they then were not allowed to contact athletes until September 1st of their junior years. And so this actually was a blessing in disguise for me. I think it gave me a lot more time to think through the process and really figure out what I wanted out of an athletic program, but also out of a university to attend. So that being said, I just wanted to start by saying that for me, I did not play for a very elite club lacrosse team. And for many people, that is the route that they take to get to the college athletic stage, especially in women's lacrosse. Coaches oftentimes communicate to players through their club coaches and have certain connections with certain programs across the country, and they will recruit out of a very similar pool of athletes throughout their time as head coaches and assistant coaches. So I didn't have that experience, given that I wasn't from a very popular club team. And so my process looked a lot like attending as many camps and clinics in person at the schools I was interested in. William and Mary was one of those schools. So I made an effort to go down to Williamsburg in person as often as I could, to put my name and face in front of the coaching staff. And that really benefited me in the end, because I was able to showcase myself at camps and clinics and go through the process that way. So I knew there was some interest from William and Mary prior to the rule changing, but then I heard from William and Mary on September 1st of my junior year. And at that time, I was able to go on an unofficial visit, speak to the coaches, visit some classes with the team, watch a practice, things like that. Then I attended a clinic the next day, and they were evaluating me and a few other players that they were interested in. So my recruitment process wrapped up during October of my junior year, and that's when I decided to pursue William and Mary and commit to William and Mary as an athlete. So that's a little bit about my process.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to turn to Donovan, and we'll also catch Caroline on this one as well. Where do you find your athletes? And what are the kind of norms in terms of your recruiting and finding these new players to get on your radar? And does the online questionnaire or cold sending of film to your email address actually work?
Okay, let's answer the first part. Because I mean, if you look on my roster, you'll notice that I have players from pretty much all over the country. So I've made an effort early on in my coaching career, and that started because the head coach I was here prior to me, like, working with her, kind of put me on the track, where it's not just about the tri-state area. She kind of gave me that, you have to try to get kids from wherever. So if you look at my roster, I have players from, Virginia, Hawaii, Texas, from everywhere. So, to answer that part, I find players from all over. And yes, the filling out of the questionnaire, and especially at the Division III level, because we don't have as bigger budget or as bigger staff as our D1 and 2 counterparts to send coaches, to as many tournaments. So we're limited in the amount of tournaments that we could attend. So I try to attend the, like your NEQ, the Maple tournaments. So some of the, the bigger ones that within, a few hours of driving, or maybe, a short hour or so plane ride. Like AU in Florida, I'll go to that. So those are the tournaments that you get to see a lot. Basically, bigger bang for your buck, so to speak. So those tournaments, I get to and see a lot of players. And for me and my staff, it's just about, once we get, see those players, it's a matter of sending out, getting in touch with those players right away and staying in touch, because at the Division III level, you don't have athletic scholarships. So it's more of forming that bond with those players, and getting them on campus, and, just kind of, it's a continual communication process throughout the whole recruiting process. And it starts early for me. So right now, as my 2024 class is kind of wrapping up, I'm talking to 25s, and, there's emails coming in from 2026 players. So it's, it's an ongoing process. So the recruiting process takes a little bit longer, and it's more intense and more involved for me at the D3 level, just because of the lack of athletic scholarships. So, those players, they form a bond, you form that bond, and that's how that works. You just kind of, it's a constant communication. And, you know, and you, for as far as the, you know, the emails coming in and the questionnaires, you do find a lot of, you know, get in touch with a lot of players that way, because, you know, they might, a lot of players will go on, you know what, I guess there's a process in high school where, you know, you run your search for whatever major that you're looking at, and, you know, they'll give you a list of schools, and, you know, so then you'll get an email from Jane that said, you know, I was researching colleges for PT and Widener came up as one. So I'll get that email, and then I'll get film, and then you're able to evaluate and communicate with that players that way. So you'll know right off the bat whether that player is someone that you'd be interested in. And then that communication process starts. But yeah, her initiating or him initiating that contact definitely works. Did that answer what you're looking for?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
exactly what we were hoping for.
Okay.
Caroline, do you have similar or different experiences? What do you think?
Yeah, so as Donovan said, the recruitment process can look a little different between Division 3, Division 2, and Division 1. I want to emphasize that for Division 1 programs, you know, we are getting a lot of emails every day, especially in the highs of recruiting season. So I would emphasize that if emailing coaches for prospective schools is your only method of trying to show interest, then that probably won't be the most effective. Now, if you're pairing those emails with attending clinics, camps, you're emailing regularly and diversifying yourself as a potential athlete, that is more attractive to a coach. I encourage prospective athletes for William and Mary all the time to be honest in their process as they're trying to get recruited, because there's a lot of generic things that you could say to a coach. But I felt like being honest set me apart in my own recruitment process. I was the last recruit in my class at William and Mary. It was between me and two other girls for the same spot. And the difference was that I walked into the coach's office and I said, this is my top choice. And to be honest, if you don't offer me a spot, I'm probably going to come to William and Mary anyways. Like, I want to be at this school. Like, you will guarantee have me for 4 years. Whereas other people were playing their cards closer to their chest. I was guaranteed player who wasn't going to transfer, who wanted to be there, academically. And for coaches, especially at the tail end of their recruiting process, they're looking for kids who want to be there. Like, they want to fill their class with people who they're going to guarantee have through the remaining 4 to 5 years of eligibility. And so that's something I would emphasize. And otherwise, like, make sure you're connecting. If you're on a club team or you're playing club sports, connect with your club directors and your club coaches. Ask them for their advice and help in the process. If they can get in touch with coaches they know, or reach out to coaches on your behalf, that's going to help you even more. Just having another contact and person who can advocate for you as a player and as a person and as a student. We're looking for well-rounded people.
And just real quick, I mean, absolutely agree with Caroline. You got to be proactive as a student athlete that can get recruited. You know, a lot of the schools that you're looking at, find out about prospect days or just clinics or camps or whatever, and go. Because as Caroline said earlier, you want to put yourself in front of those coaches. You want them to see what you're made of. You want to see that, that drive, that commitment. And that's, the best way to get it out there is to be in front of them. You go to, if they're having a prospect day, you can attend, try to be there. If they're, or any other clinics or camps, or even if you go into a camp somewhere close by, like, because that coach didn't have, or that school's not having a camp or that you can attend. Hey, coach, I'm going to be at, Villanova at, at a camp, and because, those, you could pop in at those camps as well. And, and see, you could contact coach, hey, I have a player coming to your camp, I'm going to come by and, see her. So, stuff like that actually works, definitely be proactive. Want to advocate for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for that. Julie, I want to get you involved a little bit here. Talk to me about how the athletics office and the admissions office interact, and how you working for quite a highly selective institution, how does an athlete's admissions process and file look different and act different than a standard student applying for admissions?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. So I'll address kind of the first part of your question initially. I think the first point where I kind of step in is the pre-review process. So for some students, coaches might request your academic materials. Just because a coach is requesting them doesn't mean that they are going to make you an offer. It indicates some interest, but it doesn't mean you're going to get an offer. But it means that they are sending your materials to me through counterpart in athletics, just to get a sense of if you meet our minimum admission requirements. So basically, I'm telling them, are you even eligible to be recruited, and come to the university in general? And so that's kind of the first point where I step in. And then, as the season goes on, there's a lot of talk back and forth as coaches are kind of making decisions and managing their rosters. There's a lot of moving parts as they're doing that. They have students they're talking to, making commitments either to them or elsewhere, so then they're talking to other students. There's a lot of things going on, and so really up until closer to when we release decisions is when they're finalizing a lot of decisions. So there's a lot of communication back and forth between myself and my colleague in athletics compliance. But I will say, in my office in particular, and I know plenty of other institutions do this as well, when we're reading applications of students, there is no difference between an athlete and a non-athlete. So what we do in my office is the way we phrase it, I should say, is we say we read everyone straight up. So in reality, the only person in my office who knows who the athletes are is me. And we do that because we want everyone to get the same type of read. We want everyone to get the decision that they were supposed to get without any bias of someone saying, oh, well, they're going to end up here anyway, right? And so that's kind of the way of working through the process fairly. And then on the back end, if there are, decisions that should be changed because of, athletic support, then I will do that on the back end. So there really is no difference, to be honest, for a lot of people. It just has to do with some preferences in terms of who's being recruited, what level they're being recruited at, etc. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so if I can just ask a follow-up,
Mm-hmm.
your athletes therefore need to be just as qualified as your non-athletes for admissions. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, so a lot of coaches will hope that they have athletes that are strong enough academically to get in without any athletics support. Are teams that have a certain number of spaces where they are allowed to support athletes in the process, meaning that they will allow decision changes to happen for those students. But they only have a certain number of those spots. So for them, it's more beneficial to have students that get in on their own merit, so to speak, academically, because then they have to use fewer of those spots. And so, we we're highly selective, to be honest. And so, we are talking to coaches every year about, what our pool looks like, what types of students we are admitting. We're giving them our statistics, talking about our review process, things like that, just to kind of give them a sense of where we are in that sense.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to turn a little bit of our attention to the D3 level. Kieran mentioned earlier that he was hoping to play D1. um, but ended up on the D3 level and found a great spot for himself. Um, what is the commitment level of a D3 athlete? I think a lot of people they just hear it and they think it's a lower commitment level. So talk about your time as a D3 athlete and what your days look like, what your practices look like, what your off season looks like.
Yeah. I mean, there's no short. I mean, it is a college sport. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I don't do much, but I mean, if you don't want to do anything, yeah, you can do that. But I don't think you guys are here because you guys don't want to do anything in college. But in season, I can tell you guys that it's definitely pretty packed. Monday through Friday, we have practices every single day, 4 to 6 normally, and then we'll have meetings from 3 to 4. Sometimes it start at 2:30. It just depends if we're doing like the install or not. Because we have to put in the game plan on Monday if we're going through a normal week, and then Tuesday practice, and then prep, watch film on them. But it's 3 hours of your day for 5 days a week, and then the game's on Saturday, which is pretty much all day, and then you're off on Sunday, and then you start it again. So in season, it's definitely a grind. There's no doubt about it, but it's good. I mean, I think it keeps my life in check and stuff like that. And I actually sent some Archmere teachers an email in the middle of it because I was doing some work and like I'm pretty busy obviously because I'm in season, but I had like an essay assigned and nobody in the class knew how to do like an outline. Like not one person knew how to do an outline. I had to tutor 3 or 4 kids how to do an outline. And like obviously, I mean, I feel like everybody can do an outline in like 30 like minutes, like max normally. And it was brutal. I mean, they gave us like 3 or 4 days to do it, but it was like that much easier coming from Archmere, and I was able to time manage. That's all my buddies' problems is time management. They just can't do it because the D3 level compared to D1, both of my older brothers are D1, and like they talked about the process. The one played at Drexel lacrosse, the other one's at Rutgers right now playing lacrosse there. And the difference I would say is that a lot of the times like that, it's on you at like the D3 level. It's if you want to lift, you got to go in there. Like so for the off season, for instance, like Monday, I don't have a scheduled lift, but like we do have a lift to do, but it's on me to do. Tuesday I have to lift. Wednesday there's a lift. Thursday I have runs. Like this morning had to wake up at 6:30 and do runs, and then tomorrow I have a lift. But like there's Monday where it's on you kind of, and then Saturday and Sunday it's on you in the off season where talking to my brothers, like they have lifts and meetings in the off season still at like the D1 level from Monday through Friday. And so it's definitely more crammed, but it's not obviously it's not impossible. A lot of people do it. But the perks of being D3 is definitely having the more time to kind of fit your schedule where you're not mandatory to go to a lift at 3 p.m. where I can wake up. I'm more of like a morning guy myself. So I'll wake up and I'll get a lift in and then I'll go to classes and stuff like that. Um, but it's definitely more on you, not saying that it's easier. I mean, I don't know the doing level. I mean, it seems like me and my brother were doing pretty much the exact same stuff. It's just it's a lot more self-driven for me rather than his is a lot more team oriented. So there's definitely perks, but it's still definitely serious, especially if you want to be serious about it, because it can take you a long way when you're doing both with everything you got.
And Donovan, what do you see as the perks and benefits of the D3 level as opposed to the D1 or the D2 level?
Let's see, perks. Well, being a former D3 athlete myself, and now coaching at the D3 level, I'd say, Kieran's right to a certain extent. There's a, you have, there's, you have a little bit more freedom, but, you know, the thought of, oh, it's D3, I could, do X, Y, and Z and, not worry about it. It's so not the case. My, so right now we're in the men's season, they're, going, but we're also in spring season for the women, and they have lift with the strength and conditioning coach 3 times a week, and we're practicing, for spring season. And so, the commitment level is still there. One of the differences, as Kira's mentioning, where everything is, kind of, hey, you got to go to lift at, whether it's you got to go lift 6 o'clock in the morning before class, I feel at the D3 level, it's, the structure is a little different, whereas, everything is scheduled around your class schedule. So for me, when I'm working with the strength and conditioning coach as to the time frame for my players to go lift, it's like, okay, well, I could get the majority of my team in the weight room at noon on Monday, but on Wednesday, it's 8 o'clock. And then on Friday, it's, 3 o'clock. So, everything is kind of like scheduled around your class schedule. And, we might, let's see, tap Caroline a little bit, at the D1 level. I'm not sure how they schedule your lifting, your workout. It might be, okay, well, you know what? Hey, you're going to be lifting from 8 to 9. So don't schedule. I don't know if they tell you, okay, well, don't make sure you don't have class at this time on these days, and I know, from coaching not only collegiate level, I also coach club for quite a while. I know, and I've had some players that have gone on to play D1 volleyball, and the experience for them was a lot different. Going, had to get up and, okay, well, I have lift from 8 to whatever, then I have class from 9 to 1, then I have film from there. The structure is a little bit, it's a lot different at the D3 level. You get a little bit more freedom. You're not as, not to say that you're not committed and you don't work as hard, because my players work very hard. I demand a lot out of them, but there's also, you have time to do other things. Like, quite a few of my players are involved in different clubs. They're in honors, and they're doing just different things. I have, for the first time in quite a while, I've had a couple of players that now are in sororities. For about 15 years, I didn't have one player in a sorority because they didn't have the, but now, I've had a couple, and it's, just got, gives them that time to be involved in a little bit more. And I can't speak for the players at the higher levels as for whether or not they have those time, because I know travel restraints and things like that and all that. One of the things that we can't do on a regular basis is, overnight travels. So, we have, there's restriction on how many, because, missing class, where I know at, our D1 counterparts, sometimes they're on the road for a few days at a time. We might be allowed to get out maybe a day here from missing a couple class shares to go, to leave a little bit early to travel on the weekend. But, we have to be back by Sunday because they have class on Monday. So I wouldn't say no. It's like the perk would be like, yeah, you had a little more, freedom to do a little bit more. You can't say the work is not there, because they're putting in a lot, a lot of work, a lot of commitment. Like I said, before I got on here, I just got finished with practice, and all my players were there, for 2 hours practicing. Now, they head back and have homework, and they have class in the morning. So, it's
Excellent. And if I can ask a quick follow-up, um, D3 obviously doesn't offer athletic scholarships.
no.
How do you make sure that D3 is still an affordable option?
I'll put it this way: every player on my roster right now is on some form of academic scholarship. So not only do I have to recruit talented players, I have to recruit smart and talented players. So, there's because there's for academic scholarship, there's there obviously a requirement as far as GPA. We're still right now in, because of COVID, we're still at SAT optional. I know I just read like a couple weeks ago, some schools are starting to revisit the SATs, and some never left. So, but you still have to have a certain GPA. You have to, your course load from high school. You have to have, certain classes depending on what major you got. And so, there's a lot of academic factor that goes into it. And so, in order to afford, D3, because the majority of these D3 schools are private schools, and they're, quite pricey. You have to have that high academic standard so that you can get that, those merit dates. So yeah, every player on my roster is on merit scholarship.
Excellent. And if I can throw a similar question towards Julie, how would you discuss with our people navigating the scholarships and affording uh, Richmond either athletic-based scholarships, merit-based scholarships, financial aid?
Yeah. Merit scholarships are interesting because, different institutions do them so differently, for lack of a better word. Like, it varies a lot in terms of what is offered, how many are offered, what the criteria are, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, some schools, if you hit a certain benchmark, you automatically get some are not that way. So usually, to any family, whether they are, an athlete or not, I usually say don't depend on a merit, like, don't assume you're going to get a merit scholarship, because I think when you go somewhere assuming that, unless it's a school where they overtly say, yeah, we have a benchmark, if you hit this, you get something, you shouldn't really assume, because if you're depending everything on that, you don't want to go off assumptions, right? So that's kind of the general advice I give with that part. As far as athletic scholarships, I mean, that's information that you will know ahead of time with D1 and D2 schools. D2 schools, I would say full scholarships are more rare. It tends to be partial scholarships more often. D1 can be across the board. Obviously, way more full scholarships offered, but partial scholarships are offered as well. So, that's something ahead of time going into it. And those are things that you should be discussing with your coach. They should be discussing that with you. I will also say for athletes, I mentioned as part of the admission process, the pre-review in terms of your academics and like curricularly, have you met our minimums just to be admitted? But as part of a pre-review, there's often a pre-review aid as well. And so you can get a general sense of what your need-based financial aid package would look like too. So there's a lot of, information that you can have up front that can help you make that decision and what is best for your family, since obviously finances are a huge factor in going to college. So hopefully that abundance of information can make that commitment process or decision process a little bit easier. But it's definitely something that you should be discussing with people ahead of time. It shouldn't be something that's ever assumed, or, it should be in writing somewhere, have everything in writing.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll start this one with Caroline and then move to Kieran. How did you balance having a athletic college search versus an academic college search? I mean, Caroline said that she was going to go to William and Mary either way. How did you get to that point where your athletic search and your academic search aligned?
Sure. So for me, the advice that I was given, mainly from my parents, was you're going to look for a school academically and culturally, lifestyle wise, area wise, that you enjoy, like, and can see yourself at. And if you can play lacrosse there, that is an added bonus. So that was very much the mindset I went into it with, which some people, that's completely opposite of how they're going to think about the recruitment process. But I think it really benefited me because it forced me to learn more about the schools I was interested in from the student perspective, and to really dive in and figure out if I would enjoy my time there. I think Donovan mentioned this earlier, but as an athlete, I hate to say this, and I know Kieran's dealt with injuries, over the course of his athletic career, but you could walk on campus day one and you could hurt yourself. You could, and that could put you out for the athletic season. So you want to make sure that you're at a school that you feel happy and supported at, and you feel like you're academically going to thrive at, despite athletics. And so I also had the privilege of seeing my older sister go through the recruitment process, and she decided not to play sports in college at the end of the process because the schools in which she had offers from didn't align with where she wanted to go academically and for other factors. And so for me, I think I made probably a list of 10 to 15 schools that I was interested in purely based off of academics and those other factors you consider when choosing a college. And then I looked at their lacrosse programs. Do they even have a women's lacrosse program? Is it a type of team I think I could play for and that I would want to play for? And so I put the academic side of things first because I knew that was super important to me. I was able to, have opportunities to do research at William and Mary in undergrad that have, now led to my graduate degree and things like that. I knew I wanted to put that experience ahead of athletics at the end of the day. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question a little bit.
Excellent. Yes. Before I throw it over to Kieran, I haven't seen any questions come through the chat just yet. So definitely want to throw that out as a prompt. What questions do you guys have in the audience? And now we'll throw it over to Kieran with that same question. How did you balance your academic search with your athletic search?
Yeah, I mean, same with Carolina. It's definitely going to be an interesting process, but my parents were the exact same way. They were look for a school that you're happy with, especially with all my history of getting injured. I knew that if I was going to go to a school, I had to be happy there because if I'm staying, I'm staying. And I didn't really want to leave. I mean, my brothers and my family, they're like, there's nothing wrong with picking a school and leaving. I know, like, many of my friends do it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's totally fine. I'm like, okay, but I'm more of a stick with it. I mean, I just don't know myself. I like to stick with my choice and go with it. So once I knew I was going to go D3, I started looking at all the schools that align with my major and also had a team that I felt like was like me. And I was very comfortable with the team here at Ursinus. And I visited multiple schools. I visited Franklin and Marshall, Gettysburg, McDaniel. And it wasn't like I was like, oh, like this team's worse than this team, this team worse. This. It was just like, what guys do I fit in with best? Like, what guys am I going to sit there and be like, okay, like 10, 20 years from now, who am I going to call and be like, hey, man, like, what's going on? Like, whatever. So I thought that these guys here mostly like were like me. And then I could like stay out all 4 years at Ursinus, have a great time, and it would all work out. Because if I went to a school that was only for athletics, like I was going to go walk on at Stonehill. They were like a new coming D1 school for football, but they didn't have my major. I like would probably not have been happy there. It just wouldn't have been a good fit. And then I go here, I Google it. They're like, I think top 15 in the country for my major at Ursinus. And I'm just like, that's insane. It's crazy how like the worlds collide like that. And then I was so lucky to be able to find a place like this, which Case told me from the jump, which I probably should have listened.
Don't give me too much credit, Kieran. I think I saw a hand pop into the air from Carol Mahoney, so I'm going to press allow to talk and hope that that works to prompt a question. Carol, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great.
What's your question?
I apologize. I was trying to put a question in the chat and I couldn't get it to work. And then I realized I should have put it in question and answer. So I can do that if you'd rather I do that.
Oh, fire away the question while we got you on the air.
So my question is, what I've heard is that because of COVID, students are staying longer in college. So they're playing 5 and 6 years in the sport, and it's prohibiting students coming out of high school to even get offers for athletic opportunities. Is that really the case? And if that is the case, how are you how are we going to manage that? Luckily my students are only freshmen and sophomores, so I have some time, but it is concerning to me.
Let's start with Caroline and then jump over to Donovan with that.
Yeah, so the COVID experience did affect athletics, because we were granted an extra year of eligibility. So I have chosen to use my 5th year of eligibility to be a graduate assistant coach, because I wanted that leadership experience and to see things from the coaching perspective. And I had some health issues that were going to prevent me from playing another 5th year. So yes, it is something that's happening. People are taking 5th years. 6th years are more for people who they would have had to have a COVID eligibility year and an injury that caused them to redshirt that would give them an extra year of eligibility. But my class, so I graduated last year, so class of 2023, is the last year in which that COVID eligibility is allowed. So all the people my age are currently using their 5th year of eligibility if they have it, and if they've chosen to use it. So we are going to see that phase out. And I would say more generally, the only programs in which you really would have to be concerned about that, programs like for women's lacrosse, UNC, Boston College, Maryland, Stony Brook, top 10 programs who they want all of their players to stay because they want to compete for a national championship again. So you see players popping around 5th years and 6th years to those schools. I would say it gets less common as you go down in the national rankings, just because specifically for me, I was the only one who stayed because there was a graduate program I was interested in. My other classmates who had 5th years of eligibility already had job offers and things like that going on. So this is the last year in which it'll really affect performance and incoming athletes.
Excellent. Donovan? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go.
There we go.
So for us, as a D3 level, is not as big an issue because, again, you don't have athletic scholarships. So if you decide to stay, a 5th year, that's going to be, on you, on mom and dad. And, for most of our kids at the D3 level, it's, 4 years, get a job and head on out. They're here for that experience and they're, and they're gone. So we didn't have, so I only had one player on both, actually in both teams, one in each team that have stayed. And one on my women's team, she's staying because, again, they had an accelerated master's program for her major. She's a biomedical engineering major. And so she wanted to get her master's anyway. And, she had the COVID year, so she was going to go to grad school either way. So it's like, oh, well, I have the 5th year, stay and play, get the roster spots there. And, so, and then I have one on my men's team, again, going to grad school. So it's not as prevalent at the D3 level as you would say. And Carolyn's right. I mean, you usually see that more so at those big Power 5 schools, especially like, for volleyball, you'll see those at, your Penn States and Nebraskas and Wisconsin, Texas, more so than you see, as you drop down. So yeah, it's not, and again, it's phasing out. So, in a year or so, all that'll be over. So it won't affect, a lot of the kids coming into college. So yeah.
Excellent. We are running a bit short on time now, so I'll give everyone one last chance to get in a question. But in the meantime, Julie, some quick words about eligibility center, compliance, whatever you want to talk about. The floor is yours on that front.
Sure. D1 and D2 specifically, you can literally just Google NCAA Division I requirements and there's a web page. I think the chat I can only give to hosts and panelists, so I can't give it to everyone. But if you just Google that, it has D1, D2, D3 all on one web page, links to the exact curricular academic requirements for athletes. and what makes them eligible to be collegiate athletes. I will say those are minimums. I would encourage you to also think about the institutions that you're looking at what their minimums are too. So one common pitfall that I see a lot is with foreign language. So for example, a lot of, or with D1 and D2, I think D2 as well, foreign language is not a requirement from the NCAA specifically. Thank you for putting that in the chat. But plenty of colleges and universities do require that to be admitted. It's just a curricular requirement. So, you know, I've seen some of our recruited athletes before have to take, for example, Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 their senior year just to be able to come. So make sure that you're doing that research and you know, getting ahead of that. Obviously at Archmere, you have a good college preparation, so I don't think you need to worry about that as much, but just make sure you're keeping an eye on the different institutions and not just the NCAA requirements, because sometimes that can trip you up. And we definitely have seen it.
And I will shamelessly plug the eligibility center for all D1 and D2 players. Even if you're thinking I might be D1 or D2 quality, sign up, make sure that we can certify you as eligible.
Yes.
Still not seeing any questions come through. I'll give our closing points here. And my last question here for everyone is tips or tricks, and what should we be doing freshman year, sophomore year, junior year? So let's start that out with Julie.
From the admission side of things, I would say I mean, this goes with athletics too, from what Caroline and Kieran were saying about like you don't need to know exactly what you want to do with your life when you're a freshman or sophomore. Okay. So take that pressure off of you, first of all. But if you're thinking about going down that athletics route, and you know, you should be thinking about where will I be happy academically if that athletics piece for some reason or another was taken away from me, right? So, you know, think about those things. Think about fit, where you'd be happy. Again, you don't need to settle on all of that your first 2 years of high school by any means. But, you know, by the time you start your junior year, start doing some of that research. You obviously have a great college counseling office that can help you with that. And sounds like Kieran wishes he listened to Case a little bit earlier. So they are good resources. A little plug for you guys, but you know, start thinking about those things early. Do your research on, you know, the curricular requirements, like I just mentioned, and, you know, make sure that you're asking coaches a lot of different questions. And if you have any questions on the admission side of things and, you know, they can't answer them, don't hesitate to reach out to the admissions office. So that way you can have all of your ducks in a row. So everyone's happy to help out. And we can direct you to whomever is the best resource to answer whatever questions that you do have.
Thank you, Julie. Kieran.
Tips for freshmen, I would say, just like Julie said, just try to enjoy it, take all the pressure off. Just kind of just focus on yourself. Just do what you want to do. Just try to explore new things. You're at Archmere, you got a ton of resources, a ton of clubs, a ton of nice classes to do. Like I played the trombone for 4 years, and I don't know why I did, but it was awesome. So use that time to like know what you want to do with your life, but you don't have to figure it all out now. And then junior and senior year, start turning it up a little bit. Definitely your sophomore year, start thinking about junior years when everything's going to start speeding up and stuff like that. But I would say for all the younger people and the older people now, just don't drop anything in school. I mean, I saw my older brother do it, so I was able to learn from his mistakes. But you can be the greatest athlete in the world, but if you don't have a 3.0 GPA, there's not much they can do for you. So make sure you're doing all that stuff like that. So enjoy high school, but don't go too crazy.
Excellent. Thank you, Kieran. Donovan? And you're, yeah.
My little nugget would be, those three, as I know Julie said and Karen said about, enjoying the, those early years, but also make sure that, you're focusing on your academics as well. Don't enjoy it too much where you let your academic side of it slide, because those first 3 years are very important when you're starting to look at college, because I'm being not only a collegiate coach, but also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the academic coordinator for all the student athletes. So I get to see a lot of, what goes on the academic side for, kids looking at college and stuff like that. And, a lot of times if you fall into that little hole, maybe like your freshman year or somewhere around there, it kind of, it becomes a little more difficult as you get further down in that process to get that grade back up to where, and, Jules mentioned a lot of schools have different requirements for merit scholarship or, just to get in general. So you want to make sure that you don't enjoy it too much where your academics slide, because, you're applying to college your junior year. So they're looking at, all those grades from your freshman, sophomore, all the way up to junior year, as they're looking at your application. So yeah, enjoy it. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do for the rest of it, but you want to make sure that academically you're in good standing.
Thanks. And of course, last but not least, Carolyn.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I would just reiterate what everyone else said. You want to enjoy the process, especially if you're looking to play sports in college. It can be easy to want to devote all of your time and energy into that one sport. But I would encourage you to diversify yourself, join clubs, go out for the play multiple sports, pick up a new sport, because from my own experience, when you do get to college at this level and you're playing the sport that you've pursued, it is just that one sport, and you don't have as many other opportunities to do other things that you might want to know more about, love, and explore. So take that time now to really figure out what you're passionate about, what you care about, and then lead with that in your search process.
And since Mr. Duffy has been here so quietly the entire time, I've never heard him not talk for this long in a row. And as he was a college athlete and a college coach and a college admissions liaison to athletics, do you have any last tips before we let everyone go?
No, they hit it. Obviously, continue with the stuff that you're passionate about. Build a nice big resume for yourself. Obviously, your athletics can really help support some of that stuff. But as Kieran said, if you're not holding up your end of the bargain academically, if you're not a compelling candidate academically, and as far as just your admission resume goes, it's going to make your process a lot harder, and it's just going to continue to shrink the possible destinations for yourself. So talk about recruitability, make yourself as recruitable as possible. Cast a wide net, but making sure that kind of what you value, and making sure that you're putting all the stuff in place that's going to make you fully recruitable by all the places that you're interested in. So at some point or another, all of these guys touched on it. But again, I think they hit the nail right on the head. So we appreciate everybody's time, especially our 4 panelists very much. We can talk till we're blue in the face about this stuff, but hearing from your end about your experiences and kind of your 2 cents on all this stuff has been really valuable. And I hope our students and their families took a lot from it. So.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of our panelists. I promised them we would get out of here at 7:30 on the nose, and it is 7:30 on the nose. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of our attendees. Really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to sending some fantastic athletes out into the world. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.